Hello and welcome to Dixon Cox with me, Nick Dixon, and Paul Cox. This is the podcast where we talk about the week's news in a serious way, but also with some banter, although the latter might be tricky this week because it's been such a grim week in British politics with another stabbing. This was in Uxbridge, an Afghan migrant who came over on a lorry, stabbed and killed a man in Uxbridge. Absolutely horrific. So we'll talk about that. We'll also talk about the other migrant who was told to leave prison, even though he shouldn't have been told that, and wandered around saying, why won't anyone let me be in prison? Completely insane, embarrassing, clown world country. We're also going to do a quick update on Sarah poaching. I did a whole video about it, which you should check out. But we're going to do an update because there were some things that happened after my video, like Farage, did he throw under the bus, etc. And if we have time, we'll go into the Nick Fuentes, Tucker Carlson interview, probably behind the paywall, partly because it's at the end, partly because it might get spicy. And that is on nickdixon.net. So for the full episode, as always, go to nickdixon.net. It's £5 to sign up. It's just over £4 for the yearly option. And pretty soon that is going to be my only way of survival. So I do recommend, if you like this kind of thing and you want it to keep going, I hate to blackmail you emotionally, but go to nickdixon.net to keep the lights on, basically, and keep me producing all this stuff if you want me to. And if you don't, I'll just go back to Sainsbury's. I was never at Sainsbury's. Anyway, that's pretty much what we'll be doing today. Paul, how are you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. It's autumn. The country's gone. The country's gone to shit. I mean, it has, isn't it? When we first joined the call, I was like, oh man, the news is just horrendous. I will get tucked into this in a minute, but the idea that we can arrive at this point is beyond me. I mean, we should have stopped all this 60 stabbings ago. This is maybe 17 rapes ago. I don't know. But wherever the point was, that's where we should have at least gone, do you know what, chaps? This feels
immediately demonetized on YouTube.
Sorry.
For that. No, you never know what you can say. By the way, my Harrison Pitt interview that's just out, which I recommend people listen to on mass deportations and watch, is already demonetized. So that's why you definitely have to go to nickdixon.net because it's too hard-hitting for YouTube. No, you're right, Paul. I mean, it almost seems ridiculous to go into light-hearted banter, but I did just want to say we're both here in like knitwear. It is autumn, as you've confirmed. I haven't put my heating on yet. I'm actually too hot right now as we speak. Being from the north, I refused to put my heating on. It came on by accident because I had the balcony door open and the window. And suddenly I was like, what's that noise? And I was like, the heating's on. So I rushed to turn it off because I'm like, and not because of money, not that I'm rich, but because of the pure game of it, the pure spite, really, of how late can I leave it to turn it on. I see it as a failure when I turn it on. Or it's a challenge. Let's say it's a challenge to leave it as late as possible. Probably just get ill for no reason. But you've already conceded and turned the heating on.
Yeah, the heating's on here, mate. I've gone, I think you call it homosexual where you come from. I've gone full homosexual and proud of it as well. Everything's warm, everything's toasty, everything's feeling good.
We only have two settings up north, freezing cold or gay. Those are your options. And I've gone for cold, you've gone for gay. Everyone's different.
Yeah, and you'll give yourself an hour of gay on Christmas Day if you can, just because it's Christmas and that's what Jesus would have wanted, an hour of gay.
I may get pneumonia, but at least I don't have intercourse with men.
Yeah. Oh, is that what makes you gay?
Quote of the week. No, you kind of know. Why have you been having intercourse? We weren't sure that's what it involved.
I was just told it was like, wearing slip-on shoes or maybe a pink shirt, but...
Right, I thought it was marching down the street with someone dressed as a dog next to you for some reason.
The cock hanging out your ass.
It's like, oh, this is a family show.
Sorry, yeah.
I'm actually I'm here boiling hot, not to get gay, but I feel like taking my shirt off. I'm here like I'm gonna have to like reduce my layering almost with no heating on. Of course, I am in quite a modern flat. I don't want to say new build because people then think it's a crap flat. It's a beautiful flat, but it is new, so it's insulated into oblivion. It's just like we've had a hot summer, so I'll be fine for the next 7 years.
Stored the heat. It's just in one cupboard.
I touched the wall and my hand I go up to the wall like I'm in Israel. I touch it like I'm Leo Kurz in Israel. I touch the wall, kiss the wall, but then I burn my mouth. It's because there's so much heat retained. Shots fired
from a guy from Cumbria. That's got to be gay as well, isn't it?
Oh, gay as a window, mate.
Gay as a window. That's a new saying.
That's from Brass Eye. You never heard that? He was gay as a window.
I do remember now. Gay as a window, brass eye. Oh my god! Do you know what? Brass eye was on the left of politics. It's incredible. If that was on now, that would be seen as hard right.
True. Yeah.
But it's just unbelievably so. That if you want a metric of how far the Overton windows moved, brass eye was on the left, the very epicenter of the left. It would now literally, Tommy Robinson's not too sure if he should watch it.
Yeah, it wouldn't be on. I mean, we've gone backwards in free speech, so it would never be allowed on. And we've just gone backwards in all ways. But now we're the satire, Paul. Now we're the new brass eye.
Brilliant.
Not as good, but, doing our best.
But definitely gay as a window. Certainly.
And we are far right. Just kidding. This is Centre Left podcast.
Yeah.
But Paul, this podcast starts 6:12. Let's crack on with the start of the podcast, and everyone can skip to this bit if they want to skip to the horror. So let's begin with this tragic story. And I watched this video, which maybe we'll talk about. But anyway, here's the story. This is Wayne Broadhurst. As Darren Grimes says, a binman, a husband, a local lad who tried to help, murdered on his dog walk. His alleged killer, a 22-year-old Afghan who came here illegally in a lorry, then granted leave to remain by our own government. No coverage on ITV, no candlelit vigils, no lectures from politicians about the epidemic of violence, just silence. Wayne deserved better. Britain deserves better. And of course,
Powerful.
He's right. Yeah. And, when I first saw this video, someone sent it to me with no warning, and there was no warning on Twitter when I opened it. I'm not a snowflake, but it was absolutely horrific. And I'm not sure I needed to see it at that particular moment. Maybe we should watch these things, maybe we shouldn't. There's an argument for both. But it was absolutely horrific. And that's why I posted about my rage and despair. Actually, maybe I'll bring the tweet up. I mean, it is very hard not to feel those things when you're dealing with it. There's so many of these cases, as you say. It's just like, how many more do we need? I said, let me just share it. I said, very hard not to feel constant rage and despair. What do you do when the whole regime works in concert to cover up thousands of rapes of British girls, then secretly brings in people to stab dog walkers in broad daylight and faces no punishment for any of this? It does, and that's not even like someone's messaged me checking if I was okay. That's not even that's just a normal day now. I've been a lot worse than that.
I didn't know we knew people that checked on one another.
It's nice, isn't it? Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
people on the right turn out to be okay. Anyway, let me quickly watch this Ben Habib response to it, and then you can comment, Paul. I feel like I'm a tyrant, but we'll just watch this video because Ben Habib had a decent response.
Wayne Broadhurst should be alive today. There's absolutely no reason why he should not. He was killed at the hands of a man who shouldn't be in the United Kingdom, an illegal migrant who entered this country breaking the law, and for reasons which are beyond me, having broken our law to get in, was given indefinite leave to remain. And he used the opportunity to be in the United Kingdom to brutally stab Wayne Broadhurst to death in broad daylight. This is a man who is only in this country, or was only in this country, because our government hasn't got the blooming courage to enforce our borders. Borders don't exist for some theoretical historic reason. They exist for a very practical purpose, which is to protect civil society in the United Kingdom from aggressors abroad. If people break into your country illegally, they are by definition criminal and cannot be trusted. They should not be allowed in. And if they get in, they should be, all of them, every single one of them, women and children included, should be deported. It's as simple as that. Advance UK, when it forms a government, will leave any international treaties, any international conventions which prohibit it from being able to protect our people. We will enforce our borders and we will protect British citizens, not those breaking into this country illegally. It's an absolute travesty what happened to Wayne Broadhurst, and my thoughts are with his family.
Okay. I mean, powerful words from Ben Habib. What did you think, Paul? I mean, obviously there's not much to think other than it's horrific, but go on.
Yeah. Look, I was out a very busy day yesterday, and I did a couple of shows on GB News last night. This was so underrepresented across media outlets other than GB News and Twitter that by the time I sat down to do the TV 10:30, 11 o'clock last night, I was relatively uninformed about this story and had to do some very quick research. And that in itself is a huge problem. It was on 2 newspapers last night. It was on the front page of the Daily Mail and it was on a side window pane of the Telegraph. And that was it. It existed nowhere else. It had happened early enough in the day for it to have been over all the front pages. The front pages were plastered with Megan or Hurricane Melissa, a human story of potential disaster, of course, but not particularly close to home. And I think it's very telling that we find ourselves in a position where most of the media outlets didn't feel it necessary or avoided, more likely, covering this story at all. Now, this is where we're at. If you look at it as terms of left to right, all the left-leaning newspapers, the Eye, the Metro, the Guardian, they were just full of the storm. The storm was a gift for them. The storm feeds into their climate alarmism. So yesterday they report on the storm, and I guarantee it over the next couple of days, once the information comes out about that, they'll use the human tragedy to bolster and push the climate alarmism nonsense. So it was a gift in the sense that they didn't have to cover anything else. That's what they went with. It's plausible deniability. It's a human story. The weather sells newspapers. So they got away with it slightly, but only for the Daily Mail to cover it, not really the Express. It was a bit in the Telegraph. For me, it was incredibly telling. This started out as a domestic, I believe, between the perpetrator and his landlord, and then spilled out onto the street. Wayne Broadhurst, is it Hurst? Broadhurst, apologies. He just happened to be a passerby and tried to calm things down and lost his life as a result. Now, everybody's right. Whether you're for illegal immigration or not, that crime does not take place if there is no illegal immigration. Now, that you could say, oh, he had right to remain. No, he entered illegally, and then essentially our own government overturned that equality and made it legal in terms of a right to remain. So we took someone who was a total unknown entity, arrived illegally, gave them right to remain, and then very quickly, in a very short space of time, commits a savage murder. And the fact that this was an illegal immigrant, a brown Afghan illegal immigrant, is why it wasn't a big story, because they're protecting the narrative. Now, I was on with Lefty Sebastian last night. Excuse me. I was on with Lefty Sebastian last night, and he said to me, no, Paul, had this been a Swedish man, this would have been this wouldn't have been covered at all. Well, this is not newsworthy. This wouldn't have been covered at all. To which I countered very quickly. Had that Swedish man been white and he had committed that crime, it would have been all over every single newspaper. Incredibly easy to cover. White man commits murder. Look, white men do it. Okay? So straight away, it's politicking. The left trying to skew the narrative, trying to obfuscate, trying to make sure we don't notice. Everybody's getting in trouble for noticing. This has now got to a point where I'm starting to worry, much like you are with your tweet there, that everybody, including some of the people that should be doing their best to protect us, are working against us in concert, and the outcome is death, murder, and grape. I don't know what to say.
Yeah. It's funny you've gone with
tyranny.
You've gone with that term. Even though we've already said the actual term 3 or 4
Well,
times.
you can.
No, I said it as well. It's it's well said, Paul. I mean, this is where we are. I was just looking for a thing from the BBC where they had it on the bottom of the page under a much less significant story. Did you see that? They had like a one line.
Eventually I did, because I went looking. When I do my research at GB News, I don't just look at the things you'd expect me to look at, the Daily Mail, the Express, the Telegraph, and GB News. I immediately actually go to BBC, Sky. I want to see what they're saying. Then I compare it to the sort of things that you would expect me to read. I couldn't find it anywhere, although after the show, or between the UK show that finishes at midnight and the US show that starts at midnight, I had discovered the BBC story. ITV did not cover it at all.
Look at this. So Basil the Great, the biggest story in the country right now is the man being murdered by a migrant while walking his dog. And the BBC pushed it to the bottom of the news page. And if you look at this, they had what are the government's options on asylum seeker accommodation was actually above it. And then man dies in triple stabbing as suspect. It's just there, man, suspect, very generic, very much at the bottom. And as you say, Hurricane Melissa, much bigger. Oh, Prunella Scales has died. I didn't know, but that's much bigger. All the other stories. Councils paying school transport costs for 470,000 pupils in England. I mean, why is that bigger than this? So that's madness. And weirdly, just as we were talking, without meaning to, I found this, which my friend Oren put up. Morgoth. It's Elon Musk replying to Morgoth, which is quite a strange thing because Morgoth is kind of, I guess he'd be known as part of the online right. So he said, "Here's what I don't understand. My feed is a relentless churn of rape, murder, and gore perpetrated by the immigrants the government has brought here. Now, even if we account for the fact that I'm in a far-right echo chamber, these stories are being carried by the BBC and Sky, plus Independent. So they are being carried." So I think, how are the leftist liberals not seeing this? Have they become literal Eloi, I think that's from H.G. Wells, with no sense of self-preservation? Don't they think that could be them or their kids? It just baffles me. And Elon Musk says it is beyond baffling. So yeah, I mean, it has been covered by the media as well, but not very well. But he's right still to say that, of course, you can find this stuff. It's not hard to find it. I mean, and I had a similar point on that actually, where this guy, I mean, who are these people? This is probably just some Twitter nutcase. But did you see the guy that was trying to sort of downplay it on Twitter? There's always one of these people. I didn't mean to share any of this, but let's just quickly share what I mean. So here's a guy.
Yeah, so
says he wasn't illegal. He was granted leave to remain. And someone says, well, his illegal entry was retrospectively legalized by the state, so our government class can congratulate themselves on how nice they are to black and brown people. As a direct consequence of that niceness, a man is dead. I'd sit this one out if I were you. Then this guy Toby goes, no, I'm fine. People kill each other every day. So I wrote The Enemy Within, which was like the most moderate thing I could think of, right? I mean, who are these people?
I don't know Toby Forster or Foster or what he was at all, but that last comment tells you exactly where we are in the zeitgeist. It tells you that guy there would rather admit anything or say anything than admit that there is a problem, and the problem exists exactly as it's being described by his, in this case, political enemy. We're not enemies. This is the problem, you see. Toby and I, we're not enemies. Toby, you and I, we're not enemies. What we're trying to say to Toby is there is a problem, mate. It doesn't matter what your politics are. It doesn't matter who you are. Wayne may have not had any politics whatsoever, but now he's not alive because he just happened to walk past one of these people on his regular route, I would imagine, walking his dog. Toby can, for whatever reason, have his opinion. I don't care for that, but he can have his opinion. I don't mind. The trouble is when that opinion proliferates in the way that it will do on the left, it puts me at risk. It puts my family at risk. It also puts Toby and his family at risk, and he just doesn't see it. And the trouble is that's now this collective psychosis. I would call it a psychosis. I don't think that's too strong a word. This collective psychosis on the left, which says we cannot admit that this is a problem. Because if we admit this is a problem, it means that we tar everyone with the same brush, which is an absolutely mental philosophy. It's a truly mental philosophy. You can still have these two things be correct in their mind. You can still say, I believe in multiculturalism, I believe in open borders, and you can still say what happened yesterday was tragic and should never happen. Now, if you do say the latter, you have to question the former, and that's the problem that they've got. They sit in this idealistic bubble where they just will not enter the discourse in any good faith.
Yeah, and who was that guy going on about billionaires? That ginger guy. They keep doing. That's the other thing they do.
I mean, what the fuck has billionaires got to do with it? By the way.
Yeah, they always say, "Oh, the problem is billionaires." Not there was some ginger Labour guy going on about it. I can't remember his name now, but it was Dan something or something. But it's like they always say, and Zach Polanski says it as well. Like, "Oh, the problem is not the migrants; it's the billionaires." Like, well, actually, if you're against billionaires and big companies bring in migrants for cheap labor, so they're not different things for a start. It doesn't make any sense. You want to tax your rich people as much as you can, and you want them to invest in the country. You don't want them to leave. And migration is a problem, but even from the left, because it lowers wages. But they can't seem to put that together. It's quite incredible, really, even aside from the many crimes. So it's just unforgivable. Another thing that I find strange, Paul, given all this sort of media lack of proper coverage, is Kemi. I was watching PMQs. Shouldn't mention any of this. Now, maybe there's some legal reason, but in general, even though I find it quite entertaining, I'm not trying to attack Kemi. I find it sort of quite entertaining when she gets going and when she laughs at the crowd, and I think she's got a lot better at it. But she was attacking Starmer on the economy. And it just seems like a kind of totally detached world where it's like the real, not even the real opposition, almost the real de facto leader is Farage, because he's just crushing them in all the polls. But in the House of Commons, Farage recently even sat out in the gallery to make a point of like, they never even call on me, but they just talk about me. In the reality, Farage is the real leader crushing the polls. The Tories are barely anything, and Labour are falling apart as well. That will show a poll later. They're both on 17%, and with Reform way ahead. So they're already kind of in an irrelevant sort of decaying theatre. So it's already sort of a deck chairs on the Titanic feel, or that band on the Titanic playing on. They're kind of done. But on top of that, Kemi just doesn't seem to really go for the juggler ever with Starmer. Why not mention Kabatu? Maybe she did. I watched the whole of her thing today. Why not mention that Kabatu guy who's roaming around? And someone can correct me if she mentioned him yesterday or something. She didn't mention Uxbridge at all. I just think she's letting him off the hook, and she's talking about the economy, which granted they are destroying as well. But yes, I feel like we're not fully acknowledging this still.
No, well, we're not. And there are a number of reasons for that. There is the obvious reasons, which is the narrative. And I actually think we've reached a point where something like that happened yesterday now. We've become so used to it that it doesn't seem that big a deal with that tone of voice in their mind. Well, it was just one. It was just one stabbing, one death. It's not that big a deal. These things happen. A bit like Toby Foster there. People kill each other every day. And that's the mentality that's seeking in. And I think they think, well, we don't know too much, and let's not jump the gun. Let's not die on this hill because there are other hills we can die on. There are other hills that are worth fighting for. No, this is just system. This is a systematic sort of national obfuscation of all the things that we are screaming. Look, we have noticed. Could you notice too? And we're all getting in trouble for it as well, which is nuts. It's like, well, the time has passed for all of that. I mean, the idea that we now just sit here and wait for people to notice is for the birds. I don't want to be part of team ignore. I don't want to be part of team problem. And if speaking out about it gets a few negative comments, then so be it. I mean, it's the least I can do. It's not exactly activism on my behalf. I mean, just talking about it or, turning it into satire or losing my temper on a podcast. It's the very minimum I could do. What I can't understand and what's driving me absolutely mad is why other people don't. Other people in power. Imagine you could look back at this period in 50 years' time and look at the people that could have done something that didn't. It's so easy. You could become a political hero right now by just standing up. And it could be any member of any party, by the way, who just goes, I've had enough. Even better if it comes from the left. Even better if someone you expect to obfuscate from this just comes and says, hang on a minute, they've got a point.
Yeah,
and you would
they can't because no, sorry, but I was just going to say you can't because the regime's set against us. This is the point. The purpose of the system is what it does, and the point of this regime is to kill and grape and destroy British citizens. Don't know why, but that's where we're at. I mean, and speaking of which, Paul, just what about this with the clock against us, as Mark Dolan used to say? What about this? Epping migrant sex offender given £500 as he's deported to Ethiopia, and this is Hadush Kabatu. And as Connor Thomason says here, breaks into our country after 8 days, tries to sexually assault a child, sparks a summer of protests. Government calls concerned parents racist. Police escort state-funded socialist protesters to stand next to parents, lie about the assault. Judge says you're of good character, gets convicted. Bureaucratic incompetence accidentally lets you out of prison. Return to prison, confused, get dismissed. Mill about in London, running errands for 2 days. Dog walker reports you to the police, get arrested again. After causing all this trouble, get paid £500 to go home. Government calls this a win. Just understand the depths of treachery here. The British state hates us so much, they pay foreign predators pocket money to go home after assaulting your children. They have no legitimacy left. Hard to argue. And this thing about paying them, in another context, if you paid people as a part of a voluntary remigration scheme, it's not a terrible idea. But in this context, when you've assaulted someone, a child, but it's disgusting. Maybe we'll quickly watch this video. which is from Julia Hartley-Brewer and Layla Cunningham from Reform, who's quite hot, let's face it. But even though I know she's there to psyop me into accepting that sort of Muslims can be, kind of not anything bad. I know it's sort of part of like, let's get moderate Muslims into Reform, but still, let's see what they have to say just to set this up.
I'll just bring you some breaking news. Reports claiming that Hadoush Kabati, the migrant sex offender, the Epping offender who was deported to Ethiopia, he was given a £500 payment. It was up to £2,000. For illegal people in this country and foreign criminals are entitled, amazingly, to up to £2,000 payments. But he was given a £500 payment after threatening to disrupt his removal. Now, I imagine, of course, you're in a situation where the plane can't take off, and you're in that situation. What can you do? I mean, I'm of the view that at that point you just you give someone a sedative and you tase them or whatever you do, and you put them on the plane that way. But I imagine the airlines won't agree to take someone on that basis. We have paid £500 of our hard-earned money paid in taxes to a sex offender who came to this country illegally, who had no right to be here, committed a sex offence, and now we're paying him to get on a plane. I'm sorry. Why don't we just slap ourselves in the face?
Yeah, exactly that. Just come here, commit the most heinous crime, and you know what? We're going to pay you to go back home. I mean,
it's a joke. We are a joke country. We really are.
We are a joke. We're a joke country.
Hard to argue with that, Paul. And by the way, never comment on the looks of female politicians who are professionals, and it's terribly misogynist, that, Paul. So don't do that again.
If you could help I'll try not to do it.
Unless it's Priti Patel. I mean, we're only human.
She's called Pretty, for goodness sake. What do you want?
Or is Penny Mordaunt with her sword? I'll give you a pass. Okay.
Penny Mordaunt, what a woman. What a woman. Yeah, just that. I mean, just laughing at. I mean, there's nothing funny about that. But Julie Hartley-Brewer giving it the old Mr. T treatment to I ain't getting on no plane, and they just get whacked over the back of the head, or tasered, or tranquilized, or something.
Right.
And then you put them on, and then sort of just quips that perhaps the airline wouldn't take them if they were like that. That's a good point, Julia. They probably wouldn't. But I mean, you can't justify this. I mean, by the way, they'll probably think to themselves, well, we could have given them up to £2,000, but we gave them the minimum, which is £500. And you're like, why are we doing it anyway? On what basis are we offering them money? It's like, I know it's a sweet now. It's like, please go. And in the grand scheme of things, it's nothing. Okay. The optics are ridiculous. When you see Connor Thompson's stuff there and the whole list, and you think to yourself, if there's 11, 12 things on there, if 3 of those are true, it's devastating. But for all 10 or 12 to be true, it basically means our country is worthless. And then you pay for the privilege. And the only reason he's been deported is because of how high profile it is. We have absolutely no idea how many instances have occurred like this over the last 10 or 12 years. We have no idea whatsoever. And we will never, ever know. We might know in 100 years' time, and they open up the seal and everybody can see the information. But we are in a position now where we, as a country, hold very zero. There's no more zero than very zero credibility when it comes to this type of stuff. I mean, it is a joke. I can't say any more than that. It's a joke. How anyone can't be angered by that is beyond me.
Yeah, and there's another. I don't have the clip. I'm just looking on Twitter now. I mean, someone's called into Julia's show and said that apparently in tears, just saying, my local shop has had 3 stabbings, 1 murder. My friend was murdered last year. A girl I know was murdered in the park. I'm begging my son to leave the country. My cousin was murdered. Our friends, our family are dying. And Elon Musk has responded to it saying enough is enough. I mean, it's become an international, of course, we're not just us, across Europe, it's an international disgrace. All this stuff, Sweden, Germany. This is where we are.
I look at it this way. We can collectively as a nation have a national self-esteem, of which we have very little. And the people on the left would very much like us and the rest of us to believe that they hold very dear the idea of individual people having high self-esteem and high self-worth. But they won't do it on a collective basis, which is totally ironic, because all they care about generally is the collective and making sure that everybody's included in everything, unless it comes to their own country. They seem to have a huge blind spot, a hatred, a pure unadulterated hatred for any form of patriotism, any love for the country, and therefore any love for the incumbent culture. And it's utterly bewildering to me. They think that basically being English, being British, being white, having our history is the single most evil thing anybody can ever have, and they want to destroy it. And that's why you've got this absolutely peculiar marriage between the liberal elite and people of Muslim faith. It's exactly the same.
Yeah, certainly those who
the Islamists
who hate the West. Yeah. Let's just have a look at this, even though I haven't even seen it. This is what Elon Musk has responded to. Let's just play it and see what it is.
Oh, I live in the borough right next to Hillingdon.
Yep.
And so I moved into my house in 2019. My local shop, there's been 3 stabbings, 1 murder since then.
Wow.
My friend was murdered last year up on the high street. Girl I know was murdered in Southall Park. The government are failing us. I'm so scared for my children. I have a 22-year-old son, and I'm begging him to move out of the country.
Oh my goodness, I feel for you.
What are these politicians doing to us? They're putting our children in so much danger. They're putting everyone in danger, and they're not doing nothing to help us.
And that's the thing a lot of us feel. How many is too many?
They're pushing us to do something that we don't want to do. We are peaceful people. British people never vote against their government.
Yeah.
They're going to push us through it because they're not listening to us. Our friends, our family are dying. I had a cousin murdered 20 years ago who was stabbed to death, and nothing's changed, Julia.
I'm so sorry, Sarah. I'm sure I speak for everyone listening and watching right now. My heart goes out to you, and that's the reality.
I don't leave the house without a man.
You're that worried.
Well, everyone I know is getting stabbed. They're getting raped in parks. This is where I live, not where the politicians live.
Do you think that's part of the issue, that they don't live in the real world?
Keir Starmer, if you're listening to this, please do something. I'm petrified. I've never broken the law in my life. I've been a law-abiding citizen. I've been a civil servant. Please do something. It's us that are dying on the streets. You talk about being racist. We're not racist. My sister's mixed race. I was a white child brought up in a mixed race family. Nothing to do with race.
Exactly.
To do with our safety.
Sarah, I mean, 100%. We agree with you every single word, and I'm so sorry. I'm sending you a big hug over the ether, and I'm sure everyone else is.
Wow, I mean that is where we are. What can you say? That's the person that the government hates. Our regime, our entire system hates that person because they're a law-abiding former civil servant who just doesn't want to be stabbed. But they're like, no, all your friends have to be stabbed. Your family has to be, your children have to be raped in parks. This is what and why. It's not clear. It could be stopped. They're not even attempting to stop it. The boats could go back. It's not that hard, as Dominic Cummings always says. There's stuff you can do about this, but they won't even try. They don't care, as she says. They despise the British people. The system is set against us. And it's just that person is the person they hate so much as the ordinary British person. The system is rigged against that person, and whether the individual MP feels this way, this is what the system is. It's set against us. I sometimes say someone should switch it back. It's been switched to evil. Someone needs to get in the control room and switch it back because the system is now designed to stab and murder and rape a certain number. We've had thousands of girls raped on an industrial scale and tortured. Yet we've still got Wes Streeting saying we're a successful, multicultural, multi-faith society. That is sick.
And the only reason Wes Streeting is saying that is because his seat's at risk.
Right.
At risk of
perverse incentives, because we brought these people in. Now they're sectarian.
Yeah. I mean, the case in point. Right, okay, let's. It's incredible that Wes Streeting would say that. And he'll convince himself. I'm sure. He probably doesn't even realise that he's lying to himself. But I know it's off topic slightly. But you've only got to look last week at what Jess Phillips did as safeguarding minister. She protected herself over the protection of the very people she is employed and paid incredibly well to protect. And that's because that's all they care about. When it comes down to it, human nature kicks in. It doesn't matter what political persuasion they are. They become these narcissistic, self-preserving, wicked people that can look at all these things, see it in even more detail than you and I have seen through the transcripts, and still stand up in Parliament and defend themselves. You know, I don't understand, and the victims are coming out, the survivors are coming out in that particular case and saying she's part of the problem, she has to go. Now, it's only a matter of time before you can see someone like the Home Secretary doing the same thing. Now, she's acting very tough at the moment, but where's the Home Secretary on this? Why isn't the Home Secretary talking about this? I mean, Wayne was he a dustbin man?
Yeah,
or a cleaner or something?
Bin man, I believe. Yeah,
bin man. Yeah. So he was someone who's worked within the community for years. You know, much like this lady at the lower end of the wealth demographic, shall we say, that are basically subjected to the very worst byproducts of the ridiculous policies that government after government have made. These are the people that are suffering. Not one person who's made the policy is suffering. These are the people right at the bottom end of our society that are suffering. And they're seen quite clearly as collateral damage.
Yeah.
And I don't know how somebody, well, clearly of the intelligence of someone like Wes Streeting and Jess Phillips. Now, there'll be people like, oh, these aren't intelligent people, but they are intelligent people. They haven't got there by accident. They are intelligent enough to understand evil. That's what we're talking about here. This is about children. You know, they're not children. They do understand the difference between good and evil, and it's very clear where evil lies. If you are in any way saying, "Oh, evil's nuanced, and we need to support certain aspects of evil because we need to be culturally diverse," then you yourself are evil.
Absolutely. And yes, Wayne was described as a well-respected bin man, and he didn't deserve to be stabbed by this Afghan migrant. The Home Office confirmed the suspect entered the UK in a lorry in November 2020, was granted asylum and leave to remain in 2022. Why? And does not live in Home Office accommodation. So, by the way, although this guy was someone who came over on a lorry, he was still an Afghan national. Weren't we told recently that letting in thousands of these people was the moral thing to do because a few of them may have helped our armed forces? Okay, let those ones in, but we let in thousands. We don't know how many because it was covered up. And people like Ben Wallace and Grant Shapps stood up and said they were proud of it and they'd do it again. I mean, what? This guy came on a lorry rather than via that scheme, but I mean, do we really want Afghan nationals in our country by the thousands when this is the kind of thing that they do because they're from very different cultures? I mean, it's just insane. And by the way, should we watch this? Because you mentioned the survivors, and it's very relevant, and it actually segues into our Sarah Poachin story because we've done much longer than I meant to on that first one, but it's very important. We'll just do a small amount on this and say that actually it comes together with the Sarah Poachin story. So, which I've already dealt with in another video you can watch, but where Sarah Poachin said these comments about advertising, and she obviously just meant there was overrepresentation of certain groups, but she said it clumsily. And so Farage threw under the bus. Maybe he feels he has to. But this was a really interesting moment. There was a press conference on grooming gangs. That's what it's meant to be about. But all our venal, disgusting press go on about Sarah Poachin instead, because that's their kind of story, right? Rather than the real story. But Eliane Reynolds, who's a survivor, just had enough of it. So this kind of incorporates Farage throwing Sarah under the bus and Eliane's brilliant response.
Halfway through, Ben Clatworthy from The Times. Try and speed it up.
It's fine, don't worry.
All right. Ben's there.
On the comments that Sarah Poachin made, you say they were ugly and were very unpleasant indeed. However, going back to earlier points, can you explain how they're not racist?
I've already said, taken on their own and not in context, you could read them that way. Within the broader picture, of the sort of collective madness under the DEI banner that has overcome the advertising industry. That is the context in which they're made. But they were very unwise words to utter in any context, all right? I don't think I can be clearer about that, but I don't believe they had a deep racist intention behind them. If I did, I would have acted differently. And I think if you look, Ben, at my career, over a quarter of a century in public life, you know, I have always made sure, whichever party I've been running or in a senior position, that we didn't align with anything like that at all. And I've been very strict on that, I'm going way back to the early 2000s, in that being the view, and one that I've upheld right throughout my time in politics and public life. Okay.
Can I comment on that?
Yeah,
as well?
please do.
I find it quite, overwhelming as well that every single one of these medias has said something about a comment that was made by Sarah, which is understandable, absolutely fine. Yet it's taken medias decades to recognise grooming gangs that are coming over and raping our children because they're white. That is also racially motivated, and it is racist.
Thank you very much, Eliane Taylor. So there you go. I mean, she said it very well. They're going on and on about Sarah Poachin's mild comments, and Eliane Reynolds, sorry, I think I got her name wrong. She absolutely crushes them with that. I mean, people don't want to talk about how it was obviously racially motivated. They're not treated as humans because they're white, because they're not Muslim. We know this. And to talk about Sarah Poachin at a press conference about the grooming gangs, I just thought she absolutely exposed them there.
Yeah, she really did. That's the first time I'd seen that bit. So astonishing stuff, and great to see as well, because and well worthy of a round of applause at the end there. It won't have changed the hearts and minds of the people that disagree with her, by the way. They're deep in the psychosis. They won't understand what she's saying. They will refuse to believe that there's any racism against white people. In fact, they'll tell you till they're blue in the face that you cannot be racist against white people, even though they're systematically raped on an industrial scale. That's just fine. You know, you can't point it out. And this comes back to the same old thing I talked about, pointing it out there. Sarah Poachin has committed the crime of noticing. Now, I like the way that, to some degree, I like the way that Nigel framed that, because from his position, that's all he can do. Sarah Poachin saying things like that is incredibly useful to Reform and Nigel Farage. He can't admit that out loud, but it's incredibly useful that he's got people out there that are willing to say things like that to newspapers or on national TV, because he needs people to notice. And she will be speaking to a large cohort of people that agree with her. And she'll also be speaking to an equally large cohort of people that agree with her but have been incredibly silent on it. And they're starting to grumble and grumble and grumble. Yes, it's true. I can see it. Somebody's pointing it out. Now, Nigel can't say she's absolutely 100% right, and it doesn't matter which way you say it. It can't be construed any certain way. That he's got no choice. He's got to play the game. This is politicking, and he's trying to become prime minister. So he absolutely has to do it. I'm not saying Sarah Poachin, by the way, is some sort of useful idiot. Far from it, but incredibly useful still to Reform and Nigel Farage for pointing those things out. She has committed no crime there whatsoever. It's what do you do? Because whatever way you come at it, clumsily or not, it's going to be attacked. But if you don't say it, then it's going to go unsaid, and therefore you're a huge part of the problem. So
yeah, I understand the take. I mean, he has to say something. He perhaps went further than he needed to, because Zia Youssef defended her, I think, more robustly on GB News. I mean, he's not the leader, but he just said, yeah, she was right to apologise because she wasn't clear what she meant, but she's not racist. And it was the comments were completely. Her point was true about overrepresentation. I think Zia Youssef actually did it better. I think Farage probably didn't need to go that far.
There's a reason for that, I think.
I understand that. I understand. Go on then. What's your reason?
The colour of their skin. They still have to play the game. They are in the middle of a game. And the rules of the game are you can only identify as the person you look like. So you can, unless it's gender. So you and I can talk about white problems. We can't talk about brown and black problems. So that applies to Nigel Farage too. Zia Youssef, he has a trump card. And this is a game of trumps. He has a trump card in the sense that he is a brown man of Muslim faith. So that's perfect to have in this game, because this means that you can be on one side of the argument and have a authentic discussion about the problem.
But speaking of Trump,
without being criticised.
Trump has proved that you actually don't have to do that. You can just reject the whole framing, the whole paradigm of the media, whereas Farage is a lot more careful.
Yes, because interestingly, the trope that Trump is racist, or any trope about Trump, doesn't seem to stick. It does stick with Farage. It does. I don't know if it's a difference between British politics and American politics. I don't know if it's a difference between the culture within America and Britain, or the fact that someone like Donald Trump seems to be incredibly astute at saying the things he wants to say, and none of the accusations sticking, no matter what he does or what he says. I don't think Farage has got that privilege, and I don't think he's looking for that privilege either, which goes back to my point about Sarah Poachin. He needs Sarah Poachin to come out and say those things. I'm not suggesting for a moment that he suggested she did and sent her off on her merry way to go and do so. But when she does something like that, he's not there thinking, oh, this is terrible. He's thinking this is an opportunity. That's why he's not sacked her.
Yeah, our situation is a little different. We are more sort of to the left in general than America. There is slightly more hysteria, but then again,
and we don't have free speech either. We don't have free speech.
But Farage, I don't think it's that different though. I think he has been called everything under the sun. I think he's just personally a little more sensitive than Trump and a little less combative by nature and by temperament, and he goes about it a different way. And this is how he plays it. I don't think he has to necessarily, but I can understand your argument. Yeah, I still think she would have met if she'd have just said it more clearly because her point was still very good. She didn't need to say the part, I go mad when I see them on the TV. She could have done it much better, and that would have just still been more helpful. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, they haven't lost any votes. I mean, that's the thing. Had they lost, whatever Farage said, I mean, look, have they lost any votes? Look at this. Labour has fallen to its lowest rating in a YouGov poll as the party hemorrhages support to the Greens, Reform and Liberal Democrats. The poll for the Times finds that just 17% of voters would back the party were a general election held today. And look at this: Reform 27%, Labour 17%, Conservative 17%, Greens go up to 16% because people are mental, Lib Dems 15%. It also found that half of the voters who backed Labour at the last general election have deserted the party since it's been in government. And I said, oh dear, better call someone racist ASAP, because that's all they have. And it's just not working. So anything for... You're right in a way that actually Sarah Poachin is getting the message out there, because if anything, her profile would have gone up slightly, and the kind of people who are going to vote Reform will still vote Reform, and the people who vote Labour, everyone in Labour is condemned as racist. They're just preaching to the choir because they all think that anyway. I don't think this has lost a single Reform vote.
Yeah, and I didn't really want to draw attention to the words that she said, because it doesn't matter how clumsy those words are. There is an essence to what she is saying that most people can see that is demonstrably and evidentially true with regards to what the point she was trying to make. As for the polling, I mean, we've only got to go back 12 months when anybody and everybody who had been trained in journalism in a sort of liberal elitist way that they do so would tell you that those polling results were impossible, not possible at all, never possible, couldn't be achieved, no chance whatsoever. Now that is the poll result every week, every month. And it's not waning; it's staying steady. And if there was to be a general election tomorrow, and we're going to keep saying if there was a general election tomorrow until actually one day there's going to be a general election tomorrow. And if that's the case, and when that's the case, Reform are going to pick up a lot of seats. And the country's going to. It just depends on how many. Obviously, I don't want to sound too obvious about this, but if they don't get the majority that looks like they could get, then you are going to see a huge compromise in British politics, because you're going to have to see the Lib Dems and the Greens join and maybe form a government, or Labour Lib Dems and the Greens join and form a government. And if you think right now we are divided, and if you think right now that we are going to hell in a handbasket, then should that happen, we will be in hell, and we would have gone through about the third or fourth handbasket, and we'll be sitting there seething, and we are talking civil war type escalation, and it's not impossible.
Yeah, and just on your points there, that's why they've got Danny Kruger on board, who just did a press conference about how they're going to strip down the civil service, but partly it's also about how they're going to recruit people. They've got James Orr working behind the scenes now on trying to build this team. So how they're going to, and he's got a lot of great contacts. He's friends with JD Vance. So you can get advice there, but it's about how can they build enough people for when they do win. But as you say on your other point, one thing we didn't cover is the Caerphilly, is that how you pronounce it, by-election, and actually Plaid Cymru winning because people moved from Labour to tactically vote against Reform. Reform did so much better than could be expected than they'd ever done before. They absolutely crushed it. People who were saying that Reform failed were kind of delusional. Labour got destroyed, but people did tactically vote against Reform. So you could have this horror of some sort of green Islamo alliance at the next election, and then we could be really, then it's Venezuela, then the country's over. As you say, total collapse. If people are stupid enough to vote for maniacs like Polanski and Clyde thingy, and I'm not,
by the way,
in case I get sued by Polanski, when I say maniac, of course, Paul, I just mean that he's far left.
Yes. Yes, he is. And by the way, we often talk.
Great hypnotist. Carry on.
Yeah. Look,
got to
work for me.
Work for Paul. Yeah.
I don't know. For those who are listening, I push my breasts together.
Yeah, so we got to end, Paul. But just I'll allow you to give you the final.
Yeah,
word.
one last point. And look, I've said this a lot. There has been a void created, a vacuum created for populism. It's been filled by right-wing populism. We're also seeing, and of course we are, the pendulum swing. And we are seeing left-wing, extreme left-wing populism, in my personal view, in Zach Polanski. There will be a battleground within that vacuum. And it could well be between Farage and Polanski. It's not impossible because the left that are sort of in this psychosis and don't know where to turn and are totally scared will turn to Zach Polanski thinking that I don't think he's a they, that he is the answer. And I would say that now it's going to be incredibly interesting. We have to keep an eye on what's going on with the Greens, but the Greens aren't going to solve any of the problems. All you're really seeing is a share of Labour to Greens, a share potentially of Lib Dems to Greens. What you're seeing with Reform is a groundswell, a growing movement. The movement already existed for the Greens and they're just coalescing. What's happening with Reform on the right is it's building and building and building like a phoenix from the flames. And we really are in for some pretty exciting times politically. And it'd be interesting to see where it takes us, Nick.
Yeah, that's one way of putting it. Exciting. May you live in interesting times, the famous Chinese curse. All right. Well, speaking of interesting, the bit behind the paywall will be very interesting because it's going to be about Tucker Carlson and Nick Fuentes, and we'll do a bit on that at nickdixon.net. Go there. But for the freebie, I won't say freeloaders, it's too strong, but if you're listening for free or watching on YouTube, thank you very much. We'll see you very soon. And for everyone else, please go over to nickdixon.net where we'll see the legends who subscribe. Go to @PaulCoxComedy, and we'll see you next week. Goodbye.